Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to our regular City Council meeting here Tuesday evening, February 23rd, 2016. We are located at the Veterans Memorial Building. Welcome. We have quite the crowd out there today. For those people that are watching the television, can't see everyone, but thank you and welcome. If we can please start and if we can join with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Thank you. And Marco Green, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? One of our esteemed harbor officers. You can come up to the podium.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marco. Next on the agenda is a closed session report, and we have no reportable actions. And we'll move on to, we have a little recognition ceremony. We'd like to get our city council down to the podium with our city manager, and we've got some presentations to conduct, and happy to do that.
Great. If the city council would sort of position yourself right over here, and if I could have the gentleman from the Coast Guard station and our firefighters and our harbor patrol to come up right here. We're going to have two lines. Come on, don't be shy. We're going to have the boat crew on a second rank here. Scott, you and Marco right here.
Right here?
Right here. Okay. Michael and Travis. We'll have the Coast Guard guys fall in right back on the second row for now, except Chief, why don't you stand next to Michael? Rest of the boat crew right. Perfect. That's great. So hey, it is appropriate to stop at times and recognize professional excellence, both in our city staff and in our partners, represented by Chief Niles from the United States Coast Guard Station and his crew. And we're going to move these guys out of here in a second so you can see the second row as well. But so I'm going to take a moment and recognize our internal employees, and then have Mayor Irons recognize the Coast Guard Station in general. So I think it was the 12th of February, about 10 days ago, we had a small boat capsize in the heavy surf, sort of near the South Jetty, near the rock. Scott, I'm going to briefly summarize this. Scott was in the back bay in a small harbor boat and got one of the first Mayday calls he'd heard in Morro Bay in years. Not pictured here because he had a previous engagement. Jeremiah was perhaps one of the leading lights of this story, but so picture Jeremiah here as well as I describe this.
Like about here.
Yeah, I did that, but you couldn't see it. And so Jeremiah Marcos responded immediately in one of the bigger harbor boats, and immediately also our crew from the fire station got involved with Michael thinking about swimming and Travis starting to think about incident command. So here you see two different city departments starting to work together, and then Chief Niles and the Coast Guard Station, a whole separate agency, getting ramped up and also deploying. And it sort of went very quickly like this. Scott got out there in the small boat, so there was two gentlemen, a woman, and an 8-year-old girl in the high surf near the South Jetty. And Scott got out there, assessed the situation. Michael and actually Marcus and Jeremiah went out in the big boat, made an assessment, came back, traded. Actually, Jeremiah went into the water as a rescue swimmer. Essentially did floating triage on the four folks, and this is pretty impressive. Identified that although there was an 8-year-old girl in the surf, the person who needed the most attention was the female, the mom, the adult lady. So made a on-the-spot decision to let the 8-year-old girl continue to bob in the water for a little bit while he stabilized the mom. And then in that period of time, Scott got back and traded in a big boat for a jet ski and picked up Michael. Travis was coordinating this thing. They went out on the jet ski. We ended up with the woman on the jet ski being brought back to, I think, woman on the jet ski back to shore to emergency aid. Jeremiah, meanwhile, grabbed the young girl and swam her to the beach on the sand spit. And then the guys on the jet ski went back, got the two gentlemen, and put them on the Coast Guard boat and got everybody back to shore. Fair enough. So nothing really means more than that.
Yeah.
Or than the appreciation of a family that is safe because of your actions. But let me take a moment and present a number of certificates that for each of these gentlemen. This one says Harbor Patrol Officer Scott Mather for extraordinary rescue and life-saving actions on February 14th, 2016 to 4 persons, including an 8-year-old girl, thrown into the ocean after their vessel capsized in large surf in Morro Bay. So, wow. Scott, thanks for your professionalism. Travis, thank you. Michael, great work. And Jamie, I'm going to ask you to present this to Chief Niles. Why don't you guys, you 4 guys should move around the corner there so we can see these guys here.
Dave's coordinating all this, which is great. You know, clearly we're grateful for our safety officers here in the city, and you know, it's a privilege on behalf of City Council and the city to be able to speak to our other partner in the city, and that's our U.S. Coast Guard. So on behalf, you know, we're grateful that we have you here, not only as a presence, but the service that you provide us. Obviously, the coordinated efforts that transpired during this rescue is an example of, you know, the service and the coordinated cooperation amongst agencies. So just on behalf of the city, we're grateful for your service, and I do have a certificate of appreciation for Chief Niles on behalf of the Coast Guard. So this is for you and your staff. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I'm just going through and say hi. Yeah. I'm gonna go. Hey, you guys. Wait, hey, hold on. Go ahead, you guys.
We're heading back up?
Yeah. I believe so. Okay, folks, a great way to start off a city council meeting for sure. And with that, we'll move on to mayor and council members' reports, announcements, and presentations. And I'll just start off with one report out. As a representative of the city of Morro Bay, as mayor, I sit on a county selection committee. And every city within the county has one appointed official, the mayor, that sits on a county-wide selection committee for various boards. This particular board selection committee was selecting a board to the LAFCO, so that's local area of, Rob, help me with LAFCO, local area formation committee, all that. Thank you. I should know that by heart, but always during the presentation, you kind of get through that. But there's a LAFCO seat that was available, and the selection committee appointed Ed Waggy as a council member from the city of Pismo Beach, and various people had the opportunity to apply, and just wanted to report out on that. And that concludes my announcements. I'll turn to Councilmember Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to just make a brief announcement and congratulations and appreciation to our staff for a extremely successful Coastal Commission meeting. It is rare that you coordinate a meeting with so much controversy that is actually not your meeting that's generating the controversy. It's really one that was brought to us through some interactions and some personnel changes that were happening at the California Coastal Commission when they were here a few weeks ago now. But I would say that many of us on council, and if anyone would speak to it, maybe the city manager would like to also make comments. But we received from all participants, no matter what side of the issue they were on, incredible appreciation and recognition of our fantastic staff, especially our police, our fire, and our facilities crew for having to change locations, having to manage a crowd that inside was our maximum at our community center. Outside, numbers were between 600 and 1,000 people were around that afternoon. That's a lot of people into town. Hopefully, some of you with businesses felt a little bit of a bump up. I know that some of the hotels also were full, certainly, and it was a very important meeting for the state of California. Morro Bay was mentioned many, many, many times in press releases all over the state, and also in the New York Times as well. So it was a really challenging meeting in many ways, but when you're faced with that, it's incredible to be able to recognize our professional staff for stepping up and having the event be very uneventful in terms of logistics. So for that, I appreciate. Also, we had a very good partner with many community businesses. The Chamber of Commerce was very helpful to us. The staff from the Visitor Center welcomed these 500 plus people right in the community center and gave them information, telling them where they could go for services, and certainly I'm sure we will see many of these people back, future visitors from Morro Bay. So just want to extend my personal thanks to our staff for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Matt? John? Noah?
I just would like to give, I believe, maybe Mr. Buckingham a chance to talk about with our water reclamation facility. We do have a couple of really important community workshops that have been extended to try to reach out to neighbors, mostly of the Rigetti property, which is become or continue to be one of the most likely options for the facility, and so working through the different reasons why that is the highest choice, and giving the neighborhood a chance to tune in and participate in that. So, Mr. Buckingham, I don't know if you'd like to review those multiple workshops we have coming up.
Sure. Thanks very much. So over the last couple of months, an evaluation, sort of a reevaluation of the technical merits of the Rancho Colina site versus the Rigetti site have caused us to reevaluate which site might be the best. Staff presented those things to the Water Reclamation Facility Citizens Advisory Committee, the WRFCAC, several weeks ago, and then in a joint study session with the City Council and the WRFCAC 2 weeks ago today. While both bodies saw the merits, perhaps of the Rigetti site, both bodies were appropriately adamant that we do additional community outreach to make sure that we didn't just have a technical analysis, but had a full community analysis. So this Thursday night in this room at 6:30, at the community center, 6:30 in the community center on this Thursday, day after tomorrow. I think it's the 25th, right? Yes. I was going to put my glasses on so I could see what day it was. There'll be a neighborhood workshop for really an education session, so that we can continue to educate on both of those sites, on what that might mean for the community, some of the pros and cons of both of the sites, and really a lot of the and we also want to hear community concerns, but to speak specifically toward noise and traffic, toward the visual aesthetics, toward odor or lack of odor. And so that workshop will be Thursday night in the community center at 6:30, and then the WRFCAC will consider this item again at their next regularly scheduled meeting, which is March the 1st at 3 p.m. And then the City Council may consider the item 2 weeks from tonight at their next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be March the 8th at 6 p.m.
Great. Is that it? Okay. Thanks. I think appropriate to echo Councilmember Johnson's remarks and gratitude to staff for the Coastal Commission hearing as well. All the accolades were unbelievable. So great job by staff and all the professionals in there. So great. And with that, so I got to look out in the audience for a minute. How many here? So we've got a public presentation from our Tourism Bureau. And then we're going to go into public comment. So public comment is generally for items that are not on the agenda. So I notice a big crowd. I expect a lot of you from pickleball. So how many are here for the pickleball item? Okay, great. That's not going to be taking place tonight. Just kidding. How many people are here for other items on the agenda or just public comment items? If any public comment items for items not on the agenda? Okay, so we have 4 people for items not on the agenda, and then we'll go through the course of business. I know we have the Hero Program representative, so that gives us an idea. And then just to give us an idea to manage time, how many people plan on speaking for public comment on the pickleball item? That's helpful, and to get through it, I may ask for to go to a 2-minute time frame so we can get through this course of business. I appreciate that for the help. So with that, we're moving on to public presentation. This is our Morro Bay Tourism Bureau quarterly presentation. Brent Haugen. Brent, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Irons, City Council members, and City staff. I do want to start out by saying I love pickleball. So I want to have
617. Of course, one thing I failed to mention that we'll refrain from any of the clapping and cheering so we can maintain. So if you want to say your excitement, just wave your hand. That way we can get through the night. Thank you.
Well, tonight I want to present the fiscal year July 1st through December 31st. And so getting on with the presentation, presented here are the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 markets. We're reaching out to the Tier 1 markets and regularly the Tier 2 markets through our efforts with the help of both Verdin marketing as well as mental marketing. There were 2 reports provided to Council on the activities that both agencies have provided. I'd be happy to answer any questions after the presentation. We're also capitalizing on the partnership with Visit San Luis Obispo County on Tier 1 and Tier 3. As well as Central Coast Tourism Council with the Tier 3 markets. In reviewing the numbers concerning the city TOT and occupancy for July through December 2015, there are specific patterns and opportunities that we can derive from the report. There needs to be more of an emphasis on the months of September and November to increase both revenue and occupancy in those months. In a recent meeting with Mental Marketing, who is going to be the agency that we'll be working with in the 16-17 year, I discussed with this agency on working out a plan to help with these need areas for this next year's plan. Going through, you can actually read and review the updates, the short and long-term goals. I'm not going to go through that because of time. But just looking at, as far as budget, we are trending normally with most of the activities. We are a bit higher when it comes to public relations, as we had more visiting journalists that actually came into Morro Bay during the first 6 months of the year. You will see this also reflected in the mental marketing report that was provided to you as well. Under the sales report, just to note too, Morro Bay has been benefiting from sports groups. It's very unique having the pickleball here and sports business. Most of this business is dispensed amongst all properties. There's a misconception that it's just going to larger properties, but we're making opportunities for some of the smaller properties, even with 2 rooms, 3 rooms, 4 rooms, etc. But these rooms are this piece of business is not actually requiring group room blocks. So that's a really great opportunity for all of the properties here in Morro Bay. We have seen an increase in social events such as weddings and reunions, and for Morro Bay, as the public becomes more aware of the free services that we have available to help connect them with different lodging properties, venues, etc., we're seeing a lot more opportunities grow in that area. Now, moving forward here, as a lot of people know, that we're going to be hosting Amgen this May. Through the partnership with the City of Morro Bay and Visit San Luis Obispo County, I wanted to highlight some of the efforts that our organization has been helping out with. Our sales manager has coordinated contract agreements with the Morro Bay hotels and motels, and then also coordinating that with the housing coordinator with Amgen. Morro Bay will be hosting the staff and entourage, but not the teams. Unfortunately, we do not have the qualifications or the needs that the teams have due to having smaller property sizes, as well as having that consistent dietary needs for the riders. We have coordinated the efforts for the local Amgen announcement at the Inn at Morro Bay. Thank you, Dave Buckingham. He was kind of the MC for that, so we had a great turnout for that one. And then the TBID was approached and approved the sponsorship of 120 rooms for Amgen, 40 as pre-event, and 80 rooms the day before the actual event itself. The two host hotels that were selected were Days Inn as well as La Serena, so they're actually breaking up the business in between those two properties equally. We also assisted with the marketing and public relations efforts for Morro Bay through Verdun Marketing. So a lot of really good work actually happening, good synergy actually happening amongst the city as well as Visit San Luis Obispo County. So really happy that of all the efforts that's been done with that. Moving forward here, very excited about this. We launched the Morro Bay Adventure Pass in May of 2015. There's actually copies of the current one that's in front of you. There are three types of passes. We have an individual pass, a couples pass, as well as a family pass. The most popular in order of sales is the couples pass, then the family pass, and then the individual pass. So been a lot of really great opportunities to get couples and families into Morro Bay. The pass is valid for 3 consecutive days. This product was actually introduced as a solution to increase the overnight stay from 1.5 nights to 2 to 3 nights. The purchaser picks up the pass at the Morro Bay Visitor Center, which drives traffic and visibility to that entity. And then in 2015, we had 14 participating Morro Bay businesses on the pass. We sold 47 passes, which equaled the sales of $3,846.79. And in December of 2015, we made modifications to the pass to incorporate more businesses. And as of the 31st of December, there were 18 businesses signed up to participate. So we're seeing a nice increase in that. Moving on here, we have the new e-marketing program that we established in October of 2015. The message is sent to approximately 14,000 subscribers locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. The intent of the email program is to inspire travel to Morro Bay during the shoulder season. There has been a 14 to 16% open rate. This is actually 2% higher than our monthly program that we were doing before. There's an average of 300 plus clicks within the email, so people are clicking on events and other activities and businesses, etc. And that is an increase of 105% from our monthly program, so some good things there. The most popular topics during this time period, if you feed them, they will come. So food, wine, and beer events topped the list. Next to that was shopping events. There was a shopping event from one of the local businesses at the lodge, and we saw that as being like the highest clicked on as far as like shopping events. And then live entertainment comes in at a really strong third. This definitely assists with the visibility of the new morrobay.org website, as well as we use this for list management and cleanup. Lastly, we use this to gain market research. So we're really trying to gauge on what people are interested in and what they're clicking on through this program. The organization exhibited at the Los Angeles Ultimate Women's Expo in October of last year. We had 3 goals: continual outreach to the primary market in Los Angeles. We wanted to influence the female market and then promote up-and-coming events, specials, and the Adventure Pass. The expo resulted in 10,000 estimated in attendance. We were the only destination there, so that was good for that. And we distributed 1,000 visitor guides, 1,750 specials and deals. We collected 225 names through a giveaway, and we saw a slight spike in the website, about 2% over a week period of time. We're actually not planning on to repeat this show, as attendance was about 10,000 people lower from the previous year. And attendees didn't really fit the profile and what we were looking for as far as like bringing those individuals into Morro Bay. A lot of them did not have vehicles or a way in how they could get here, and there was a lot of duplicative booths. Moving on here, the new morrobay.org website, if you haven't had a chance to look at that, we did just launch that on December 10th. In 2015, it was a 6-month project, including a temporary part-time contract staff and myself. Typically, a destination site takes between 8 to 10 months to produce, but because we're so organized with the information from updating the visitor guide, that really helped project the project and move forward 2 months earlier. We're excited to have a much more robust, interactive, and responsive website. Having the new site, we've resolved an issue of maintaining 2 different systems. We had actually a mobile site as well as a desktop site where we were maintaining both. So this actually helps with reduction of staff time. The new site enables us to feature and highlight press releases, events, plus deals and promotions, and all the great businesses that are here in Morro Bay. There's a new inspirational categorical menu, and the total investment was about $30,000. So moving on, here we have the Morro Bay Visitor Guide. This is the 3-month project that began in December of 2015. We're producing a 40-plus page guide, including a center Morro Bay map. This guide is inclusive of visitor serving businesses. We're also incorporating some things and indicating chamber members, and we're also going to be reaching out to the Morro Bay Merchants Association to see if we can do an indicator there as well. Locally, we use it as a resource guide, and it's distributed through the Morro Bay Visitor Center, Morro Bay Hotels and Motels, the State Park, and then other locations. Regionally and nationally, we use it and we distribute it through consumer and trade shows, but a big chunk is actually done with fulfillment, so there's a lot that we're mailing out. We offset the cost of the guide by 40%, so it has more content versus just print advertising. It's also a benefit to the advertisers as well to not be so full of advertising. That way they get the visibility as well. The projected completion date of the new guide will be March 31st, 2016. The rest of the information is in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Brent, thanks very much for your work and the presentation. Are there any questions from council? To my left, to my right, seeing John? No, seeing none.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great meeting.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And with that, before we open up public comment, we normally open our public comment with business spot, and we have Elemental Herbs that will be opening up our business spot. Welcome. Please come forward and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Elemental Herbs.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Irons and council members in the city of Morro Bay. My name is Caroline, and most of you know our business is Elemental Herbs, and recently we've rebranded to All Good. We have a product that we've been making for 12 years, even before we had a business, that's called All Good Goop, so now we're All Good. And I come with a very simple message, which is just one of gratitude. Yay, Morro Bay! Thank you. You guys are amazing. We recently moved our headquarters here, and the story begins with Councilman Smuckler helping me find a location, of which my landlady is in the audience, and it's the Old Sun Bulletin building. We had 800 square feet in Baywood, and we jumped into 8,000 square feet here in Morro Bay. So we've brought our warehousing and shipping in-house, and that's been a really big adjustment for us, but it's been great. It's a fantastic place to land. I mean, Morro Bay has been a pivotal point for all of us in this business the whole time we've been doing it. Basically, I started making All Good Goop, a healing salve, in the Morro Bay Community Center in 2004, believe it or not. It was a hobby. I had no intention of having a business. I had a farm that didn't have a kitchen because we tore the house down to rebuild it. And so I was able to escape the construction site and come down to Morro Bay, a nice facility, and make the product there. So what are we, 12 years later, that's where our staff continues to make All Good Goop. It's every Wednesday. We hand pour the jars with herbs that we grow on our farm, calendula. We have, I don't know if you guys can see this. We have a farm. Show the public people.
There you go, hanging out there.
Up on 41, and we grow the calendula there, dry it, and infuse it in the healing salve. So it's been a labor of love, and our team is very happy to be here in Morro Bay. It was a big project to get that building going. Now our product line extends out to all range of body care products, all organic, with lip balms, sunscreens, healing ointments, really good products for people that play fast-paced sports on hard surfaces. So if you have any scrapes or any sore joints or that kind of stuff, look at allgoodproducts.com. You can find us there. We're a B Corporation, so we have a triple bottom line ethic, and we're 1% for the Planet members, which we dedicate 1% of our overall revenues to giving back to environmental causes, which has enabled us to support the local community. We also offer private labeling, so we've done lip balms for the Tourism Bureau of the City of Morro Bay, and you can find our products locally at Sunshine Health Foods, at Coalesce Bookstore, Wavelengths, and Smoobage here in Morro Bay, along with 3,500 other retail outlets in the U.S., Japan, and South Korea. So you guys have been really helpful in getting us to land in Morro Bay, and we plan on being here for a long time. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Really, we just wave. There's a lot of energy going on tonight, so this is going to be a good meeting. And so at this point, we're opening up. Thanks, Caroline. We're opening up for public comment for items not on the agenda. And if by chance there's some folks out there that can't stay for items that are later on in the evening and want to speak to them now, please come on up. Welcome.
And Carolyn's stuff is great. Anyway, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Rigmore. I love our living legend, Nancy Castle, and her good heart, but I do disagree that the city and our tax money should get used for homeless shelters or warming places. We have many church groups here and private people who think it's a good to help, so let them do it. My opinion is that those of the homeless population who are heavily addicted or have mental issues needs way more assistance than a shelter. And those who are homeless because they want to be free or for whatever reason, a shelter is not going to change them. There is a Chinese proverb that I believe strongly in. Give a man a fish and you only feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you give him a good turn for a lifetime. I was homeless once when I was a student at Sorbonne University in Paris and learned a lot about homeless people. We had it way tougher than nowadays. We had no food stamps, no free dinners, no free food. We ate leftovers out of the garbage cans, etc. Morro Bay would have been a haven. And if you make it more of a paradise, more homeless people will come. I spoke to 5 homeless people here last week over 3 or 4 days, and their opinions are not too far different from mine. Their negative remarks over a shelter here was mostly, they won't let us bring our stuff. We can't smoke or drink. They have rules. They pack us in and we have to listen all night to heavy breathing, coughing, snoring and other things. And we really would rather not that too many other homeless comes here crowding us out. So it seems to me you should really think this out. Do something for the people who work here and wants to live here. Change some of those restrictive codes you have. Then, regarding free use of public facilities, I'm against that too. Why should some groups have to pay and some not? That beats me. Regarding all your different city codes and rules, I hope they will be looked at to be crystal clear. I heard something about a lady who had hedges that were too high, for example. First, if they were in her private land and they were a certain height at the time you made your new rules that fences could only be 3 feet, then I feel that if people who had hedges or fences with a height that was allowed or permitted before the new codes, they should have the right to keep it at that height. just like the property across the street from here has fences right on the property line that are maybe 10 feet high or higher and probably built with permit. You would not ask that owner to slice it down to 3 feet. That would be crazy. We need clarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick Moore. Public comment is open. For those who'd like to come forward, please come up. AGP, we need some help with overhead. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come up while we're getting this thing adjusted? Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Trina Doherty, resident of Morro Bay. I come to you tonight wearing my usual 3 hats. First, representing AGP Video. Thank you, AGP, for making me look good. And I know some comments were made before I got here, so excuse me if I repeat. But we would like to thank the entire community of Morro Bay for stepping up to the plate with the recent Coastal Commission meeting held here. As contractors for several state agencies, we travel all over the state, and it was a real treat to have it held in our own town. The reports heard were all very positive about how everyone was treated during this big event. Being a state agency, the Highway Patrol was on hand to ensure security for the commission and staff. Morro Bay PD and Fire Department did a fantastic job of ensuring the safety of all participants. The City of Morro Bay and the maintenance staff did a great job making sure the community center was a viable option. The Inn at Morro Bay, hotels throughout the city, Chamber of Commerce, and all the restaurants and services did a superb job in serving the needs of the commission staff and the public. A huge thank you for successfully shining the spotlight on Morro Bay in spite of the intense nature of this meeting. My second hat of the evening is that of President of the Eco Rotary Club of Morro Bay. Just a reminder that we meet every second and fourth Thursday of the month from 5:30 to 6:30 at the Community Center. Guests are always welcome. This Thursday, Randy Ponder of Rock Harbor will be our guest speaker. He has just returned from Ethiopia, where he took several solar reading lights that our club donated, and he works in a very impoverished area, so it'll be interesting. My third hat, last hat, is that of Morro Bay Friends of the Library president. We are coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the library remodel. If you haven't been over there, you really should stop in. It's really an incredibly beautiful space and has really evolved over this last year. One super great addition has been that of the Morro Bay Friends of the Library bookstore. This is a permanent store with an ever-changing selection of great used books at ridiculously low prices, so shop all you like. It is open all the hours that the library is open. The Friends are excited to announce our first book sale of the year. It will be held on Saturday, March 5th from 10 to 5 in the library. If you are a member, there'll be a members-only sale from 9 to 10, and if you're not a member, you can join at the door. Even though this is a smaller space for our book sale, there'll be a wide selection of books and the hours are longer so you can browse all you like. We would like to remind everyone to please bring your gently used books in good condition to the library during any open hours. Give your books a new home by donating to the Friends. All proceeds support the wonderful programs held at the library, as well as express books and other library materials. I'd like to mention a couple of new opportunities through the library system. First, there's a brand new phone app for the Black Gold library system. You can check your account, order books, pay fines, and more. So go to the Play Store, Google Play Store. There's also a new partnership with Makerspace, so check that out. Thank you very much. See you on March 5th.
Tina, thanks for wearing all your hats.
Good evening, Marla Jo Breton-Sadowski from North Morro Bay. And I just want to follow up with all the library and literate talk. And I came today to share this announcement about a free, what do you call it? The author is going to be an author of a book called Think South is going to be at Colas Bookstore this Saturday at 7 p.m. She was intimately involved with sending 6 men and 40 dogs across the Antarctica, and so she has like an in-depth experience to talk about how that all went. And the really great thing about it is that this team of extreme adventurers were selected from various continents around the world. So they were, they didn't necessarily speak the same language or anything either. Anyway, I just wanted everybody to know to get on down there if you can. It should be a great show, and maybe maybe I'll donate a book to the library. Is that okay? Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Great, Marlo. Thank you. This is a time for public comment for items not on the agenda. Welcome.
Linda Stedgy, Morro Bay. The city has failed to protect a North Morro Bay beach access path heavily used by seniors, people with disabilities, and young families with small children, some of whom even come from other parts of the city to use this path. Recently, a developer proposed a project that would eliminate the path. No alternate on-site access was offered, even though our LCP requires it. The city initially said the public had no legal right to use the path and did not follow LCP policy, so residents had to step in. Residents conducted a prescriptive easement survey to establish the public's right to the path and appealed the permit. Only after that did the city agree the public probably did have a legal right to the path. The permit applicant then offered an alternate path on the property as the LCP requires, but it would have been steep, just 18 inches wide, on the side of a steep slope and unsafe and unusable for the groups I've mentioned. At the council's permit appeal hearing, you voted against protecting this important beach access, and the mayor actually arrived at the hearing with a presentation favoring removing the path altogether. The council claimed there is other comparable access in the area. There isn't. That's why so many people use this path. Residents then appealed the permit you approved to the Coastal Commission. The permit applicant subsequently agreed to widen the path from 18 inches to 3 to 4 feet, but the developer-controlled commission refused to do more. We are still concerned about the steepness and thus the usability of the path now being offered, and the city and the property owners' refusals to maintain it. An unmaintained path on the side of a steep slope would wash away, as attested in various published trail maintenance standards and guidelines. In its refusal to maintain the proposed alternate path, the city cited liability concerns. But California Government Code Section 831.4 appears to indicate there would be no liability issues, and the city doesn't seem to be afraid of liability for the new bike park. Furthermore, we've consulted with an expert who says that building the alternate path proposed now would be a major engineering challenge and would require major disturbance of the stream bank. Would that require a new CDP? Could the offering of the alternate path be an empty gesture because it would not be possible to get the necessary permits to build it? Because of these concerns, residents have filed a quiet title lawsuit to try to ensure that this important beach access will not be lost. It seems that many people at the city have been looking out for the interests of the property owner, but we need you to look out for the interests of the rest of us, the seniors, the disabled residents, and families with small children, for whom the existing path is the only safe and usable beach access near their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anybody else for public comment?
Greetings, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, people watching at home. My name is Don Beatty, and I live in Morro Bay. I have been speaking at these meetings since I moved here less than a decade ago. Sadly, most of my comments have been about how unhappy I and my neighbors have been with how the city's treated the cloisters. I'm sure folks see me as that woman who just can't be pleased. Well, I'm here to say that's just not true. Although councils prior to you spent time giving consideration to the issues the cloisters face, nothing got better until you. Right away, you made a change at the city attorney position, and Joe Pannoni found how we homeowners were being inappropriately charged without prior input in advance, and helped fix the supposed debt we had that we thought we'd never come out from under. At the same time, you made a change to the city manager position, and things have been great. Placing our district maintenance issues under Rob Livick being the highlight. In addition to removing dead street trees just days after mentioning that their existence had been a long-standing concern, the city, again under Rob's guidance, just completed repaving our walking path that too had been a long-standing concern. Lastly, just one comment about code enforcement. I've been delighted with what I've seen so far, most especially the efforts regarding off-leash dogs. But I do agree with many of my neighbors that our code should be looked at before citing folks for things that may not make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Anybody else for public comment for any items not on the agenda?
Yes, my name is Chuck Stoll. I'm a resident of Morro Bay. I want to first thank the council for the language and declaring the shelter crisis for our community, and that you're willing to explore further ideas and plans. There are some of us within the community who honestly feel that this subject needs to be addressed a little longer. And I want to also thank you and appreciate the effort that you're giving us to talk to Dave Buckingham tomorrow, I believe, Dave, at around lunchtime. So this issue about shelter crisis is very near and dear to some of us, and we really do want to explore it further. We believe that there are plans in place now throughout the county, in some places throughout the county, that we can adopt many of those policies that can make this thing work for the city of Morro Bay. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. Anybody else for public comment?
Just for the record, you don't have to ask the city council to talk to your city staff. We're here every day and look forward to talking to each of you.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Susan Craig. I'm a Morro Bay resident and business owner. I have also been on the Morro Bay 4th of July project committee. I got this information late, and I won't be able to stay until it arrives on the agenda at 5C. It's kind of far down. Anyways, I just wanted to make a point that I believe that having the activity on the 4th of July, even if it's just a daytime thing, is important to the community here. It's the folks that live here that need something that they can go to that is safe, alcohol-free, and just a good old-fashioned picnic kind of deal. So I know that you guys are considering making that your responsibility. So I'm all in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anybody else for public comment for anything, items not on the agenda? Pickleball will be discussed at a later date. If you can't stay, please make it. Yeah.
Okay. I'll make it brief. My wife and I retired and bought a house here in Morro
Can you state your name, please, for the record?
Oh, my name's Larry Landis.
Thank you, Larry.
And one of the first things we wondered about is, well, what are we going to do in our retirement years? And, you can only go wine tasting so many times. And so pickleball has really provided a lot of answers for us in terms of social networking, recreation, and aerobic exercise. And anyway, I appreciate the support that the city has given pickleball, the Parks Department, for example, and the council. And so I wanted to just state my support as a voter that we look forward to more support from the council. Thank you.
Great, Larry. Thanks. Any more other public comment for any items not on the agenda, or if you can't stay for an item later in the night? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Thanks very much. So any comments from public comment? Any responses to staff? Anything? No? Seeing none? So we have 5 items on consent that we need to get through. We've got our public hearing for our concept plan on the waterfront, and then we get into our recreation program update, and then we get to the item of the night, it seems, the pickleball court. So I'd like to be able to get through all these as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we do open public comment for any item on consent. If there's any particular item on consent that somebody wants to speak to, we have a rural transit program. We've got a resolution for the City Conflict of Interest Code, goals and programs, proclamation for Spay Day, etc. Are there any other comments for anything for that? Seeing none, I'll close public comment for consent. And are there any items on agenda that would anybody like to pull? Christine?
I'd like to pull A2.
A2, of course. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve items A1, A3, A4, and A5.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Smuckler, a second by Mr. Heading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Item A2, Ms. Johnson.
Great, thank you. I'm pulling this just for clarification, and I spoke earlier with Ms. Janine Burlingame, and she's going to clarify for us. There's been talk, and I'll explain why I pulled it first, and then you can respond appropriately to that. So there's been a lot of discussion in the last, less than 2 weeks in our community about our recycling opportunities that we used to be able to take our recycling. Many people in the community utilized it either at the Spencer's grocery store parking lot or near Cookie Crock and Salvation Army. Those facilities shut down suddenly less than 2 weeks ago, and I've been noticing there have been a lot of comments and people wondering what's going on. Did the city have something to do with that? Does this mean that the city is no longer recycling? And then ironically, there is a recycling item on our consent agenda, so I just wanted to take a moment and clarify officially what we know about those recycling centers and how that differs from this item that's on the agenda. So I think I'll turn it over to Ms. Burlingame to explain that better than I could. Thank you.
Thank you. The item you have on your agenda tonight is for a program run by CalRecycle, they call it a city-county payment program, and it utilizes the same funding source as these recycling redemption facilities that recently closed. But there are 2 separate programs. They have 2 separate functions, and the city-county payment programs funding for utilizing marketing and outreach to the business community to encourage additional recycling opportunities or establish recycling opportunities that weren't there. On the flip side, the other part of the funding that's used from these CRV fees that are established and set and paid at the point of sale for beverage containers is that the grocery stores have certain requirements from the state. If they have $2 million worth of sales, if they're in this particular list of grocers, they're required to have one of 4 different things occur. One is to have a recycling redemption facility, a certified facility available within a half mile of it, and that's what we currently had at these 2 locations. One of the other options is to provide in-store redemption. And the other 2 don't help out in this regard. They can request from the state an exemption to the regulation. And I don't know the specifics as to what would qualify all the criteria, but I think the idea is that if you have a couple of stores that are within a half a mile of each other in what's called a convenient zone, you both don't have to provide that type of service. So I think the reason why Albertsons didn't have one, but in the Cookie Crock area there was one, is because you had that. Don't know if that's exactly what occurred, but that's probably one of the criteria for it. So what has happened recently is that commodities pricing has been very low, and the recycling facilities that were operational, they were receiving less funding from the state than they had been receiving in the past. And so while we don't have with certainty what we are thinking is occurring is that it's a financial business decision that occurred. And about 200 of these facilities were closed throughout the state. And unfortunately, in Morro Bay, the only 2 that were operational were part of those. I spoke with Bill Worrell with the SLO Integrated Waste Management Authority to see if he had a little bit more information about what was going on, because we have been receiving a lot of comments and questions from the public. And he had been in conversation with the state. He's, as the agency that does the reporting, the annual reporting that's required for another regulation that we're covered under, he requested that any exemptions that are requested of the state, that in their notification process, they become notified as well so that they can provide comments, and effectively urging no to granting any additional exemptions in this area. So with the process from the state of one of these 4 things that may occur over the next 5 or 6 months, there might not be some resolution until then, which would be either a certified redemption center comes back into the community, whether the grocery store provides an in-store redemption opportunity, whether an exemption is applied for and granted, or whether a daily fee is paid to the state. And we won't really know what happens with that for the next several months. But that's as much information as the city has. This is a state-run program. It's not something that the city requires. It's not something we permit or operate. So
Great.
the state has said to go to their Cal Recycle website to get more information. The next nearest redemption facility, unfortunately, is in San Luis Obispo at the Target store. But you can look on there and see what the next nearest location to you would be. But with the proviso that it's not necessarily up to date. Bill Worrell had indicated a few locations on there that were not functioning that are still on that list. But they do provide telephone numbers, so you can call those and determine whether or not the facility is still opening before you go out there.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
No, I just wanted to clarify that the city had no control over closing those, and the city, we're still recycling citywide through our, continuing to do what we do every day. Your garbage comes, your recycling goes. It's just that we're going to miss those, and that's disappointing for sure. But
great clarification.
Thanks. So I would move approval of A2.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Johnson, a second by Mr. Heading. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. That concludes our consent agenda. And at this time, we can't start our public hearing until 7 o'clock. So the only other item on the agenda beyond that, our rec program, which is going to take a little bit longer than that. And could we pull one up that might be recommended? Is there one that we might look at?
Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at our clock that we can see is slow. I'm looking at 6:58.
You're correct.
So I wonder if we just want to wait it out and get that's just my suggestion.
Yeah, thanks for that.
That's why we go so late, because we think we have more time than we do.
Yeah. So we've got 2 minutes before we can legally start our public hearing. And with that, we'll just take a 2-minute pause, and then we'll start our public hearing at 7 o'clock. Thanks. Approval for conditional use permit UPO 359 for the construction of a gangway, dock, 7 boat slips, second-story dining deck expansion, and coastal access improvements at 725 Embarcadero, Rose's Landing. It's a community development item. The recommendation is to adopt resolution number 09-16, making the necessary findings for approval of the conditional use permit UPO 359 and adopt the mitigated negative declaration for improvements at 725 Embarcadero. And we're looking towards Ms. Jacinth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Yes, this is, as you stated, the applicant is requesting concept plan approval of conditional use permit UP 0-359 at 725 Embarcadero, also known as lease sites 82 to 85, 82 to 85W, which is also the location of Rose's Landing, a visitor serving commercial use, which you can see on the slide. The area in question is surrounded by a red border. As part of the city's plan development regulations, the project requires approval in a 3-step process. Tonight's approval is seeking concept plan approval. After tonight, the applicant is required to obtain a coastal development permit from the Coastal Commission. This project is located in the original jurisdiction. And also under the city requirements, the applicant, upon receiving concept plan approval, is required to obtain precise plan approval, at which point it would come back to the city for review by the Planning Commission. As part of those plan development regulations, the Planning Commission did review the project on January 5th, 2016, and voted 4-1 to forward a favorable recommendation with added conditions to the City Council, in which I will go through. Just for some street view images, I've included a couple of slides from both the north side of the business. This is on the north, and then to the south. Specifically, the project description includes 3 main components consisting of new floating dock, gangway, 7 boat slips, 6 of the slips which would be private month-to-month rentals, and then 1 dedicated slip for city use. In addition, a 487 square foot building addition on the second floor, a second floor dining deck expansion, and improvements to coastal access both to the north and south of the building, and then the requirement for bayside lateral access. The dock portion of the project is within the lease site, is within the boundaries of water lease 82 to 85W, which would increase that water lease site from about 50 feet now to approximately 94 feet. And as I stated, the project improvements to bayside lateral access include expansion of the northerly entrance of the 8-foot lateral access by connecting a bridge from the existing public observation deck that's just north of the lease site to connect in with the existing western lateral access, and then as well as extensions of that lateral access that would loop around the southern side of the property. So at the January meeting, the Planning Commission added 5 additional conditions, and I'll just go through them right now. They are recommending that the City Council accept these added conditions. And let me just catch up here on my notes because it's kind of hard to turn around and also speak into the microphone. Planning Commission 10, which was improved connections between lateral access, and I'll just paraphrase these because you can read them also on the screen. As you'll see on the revised plans before you, the applicant has made attempts to address these Planning Commission conditions. So the first one, as I said, improved connections between lateral access on the north side of the building. Improvements to include a bridge. Condition number 11, public access space and private dining shall be clearly delineated and enclosed with railing. Conditions 12, that the glass windscreen and or roof of the bayside lateral access walkway shall be removed. Condition 13, that there be sorry about that, thank you. Here it is. Condition 13, precise plan shall include a specific sign plan with both commercial tenant and public access signs shown. And the last condition, which is that plan shall be revised to the greatest extent feasible to ensure lateral access to that southern lease site known as shown on the plans as lease site 18. As I said, since the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant has submitted revised plans, and I'll walk you through the proposed site plan here. This site plan shows the existing building, and then currently there are no docks or slips of any sort, so they would be constructing the gangway, floating dock, and slips in this area. So here outlined in red, you see the area where the proposed dock and slips would be. And then this is a close-up of the dock plan. And then the applicant, as part of the project, has made several modifications to the proposed site plan in an effort to mitigate impacts to eelgrass habitat. This slide in the gray areas and where the red arrow was pointing to shows the eelgrass habitat, both vegetated and the 5-meter unvegetated buffer requirement that is required by the California eelgrass mitigation policy. During the routing of the environmental document, the city received a comment letter from the Coastal Commission with concerns primarily regarding public access and biological resources, namely eelgrass protection. As a result, the docks were shortened in length, and that's why you see the angled design here. In addition to this requirement to avoid eelgrass, the Planning Commission also sought to improve the lateral access by constructing a bridge at the northern point, and this area here is where the proposed bridge would be. It does show a small intrusion into eelgrass habitat by about 5 square feet. And so in order to offset this intrusion, the gangway has been relocated south so that it connects with the head float near slip 7 versus the previous location near slips 5 and 6 as was shown to the Planning Commission. Relocation of the gangway provides for 2 benefits. It allows for a 10-foot wide width of bayside lateral access near the first floor outdoor dining area, which is right here. And secondly, it reduces the amount of eelgrass intrusion for an overall reduction from 519 square feet, as the Planning Commission saw, down to 504 square feet of intrusion now. And then in this slide, I've highlighted the areas where the improvements to lateral access or coastal improved public access would be. So there is an existing lateral access walkway right here. They were unable to widen it due, again, to the impacts to eelgrass habitat. But they have made improvements, and I'll show you in a few slides some of the visual simulations so you can see what that improvement looks like. This is the area, as I pointed out, where the bridge connection would be, and then the expansion of the lateral access here so that we have the required 10-foot lateral access. And then the applicant has also proposed delineating vertical access points both on the north and south side of the building with a stamped concrete design to make it more readily apparent to visitors that this is public access available for all. And as I stated earlier, that was a comment that was brought up by Coastal Commission that they felt, and the Planning Commission agreed, that the existing public access in this area is quite frankly just not obvious to people. There are existing dining tables there. It really gives off the impression that it's not available. You feel like you're walking through someone eating. And as part of this proposal, the applicant has really sought hard to address that, to remove that feeling. And the access point in this area does include a proposal to remove all of the tables there. It would retain the existing tables in this corner here that are there. And currently, right now, the lateral access that you have really kind of snakes you through all of this. So as proposed, the design would have you go around the dining and not through the tables. And then this area here would also have, as required by our waterfront master plan, which requires railings delineating those dining spaces, they are proposing that it would be a railing to separate those spaces. And then before I go on to the second floor, so in regards to the Planning Commission's conditions, they have been conditioned to provide a sign plan that would be presented to the city at the precise plan approval stage. This next slide shows you the proposed second floor. And the area circled is the area where the second floor outdoor dining deck expansion would be. It primarily represents some reconfiguration of the existing dining with the bar relocated here, and this would be a semi-outdoor area enclosed with a windscreen for more visitor serving opportunities. And then in this area, there is existing dining here. Originally, the applicant had proposed to remove all dining on the second floor, and Planning Commission provided feedback to the applicant that they were okay with having dining on the second floor, but not the quasi. Is it restaurant dining? Is it public dining? And so, and considering what the Waterfront Master Plan says about encouraging provision of outdoor dining spaces, they have retained a portion of upstairs dining for the restaurant use, but then they are also dedicating, and as you'll see in the staff report, the dotted area here on the right represents a 10-foot wide dedicated public observation deck. And then the next few slides show you some of the elevations. And it'll be a little easier to see this in the visual simulations when I get to them. This is the elevation as shown from the water. So here you can see in this area the widened lateral access on the south side. And then this is looking from the north. And then a section view, so just for purposes of clarity here, this is the existing dining. This is the lateral access as you're walking along the west side of the building. This is the area where that second floor dining deck expansion would be. And so it's over the existing building. And then here's the first visual simulation. This shows the bridge connection point. This area here is an existing public observation deck, very popular with visitors, great vista point. The deck here, bridge, would extend. The part of the existing lateral access has a wall of wood and glass materials. That would be removed. To open it up, they're proposing to keep the roof, but add 4 skylights. And the reason for keeping the roof is for weather protection, anti-bird strikes, that sort. Yes. Here's a visual simulation with the docks. So it shows the existing docks, and you'll see here that this first slip is going to be the shortest slip because of the requirement to avoid eelgrass, which is abundant in this area. You can see here the new railing proposed would be some type of metal or composite railing. This is a simulation that attempts to show all 3 things in one picture. You see a glimpse of the docks on the right, the bridge, the lateral access extending. You can walk through there. And then here you see the 487 square foot dining deck on the second floor. And then now on the south side of the building, this is the widened 10-foot lateral access. You're walking around the existing dining tables. You're not walking through them as they're eating their meal. And then the relocated gangway. And then additionally, by moving the gangway to connect with slip 7, there is also, as I said earlier, less eelgrass intrusion. So that's a benefit. And then this is from the west. So here you can see the widened access there, the new railing, the bridge point, and then the new deck. And as required by the California Environmental Quality Act, the project was subject to an initial study, which resulted in a mitigated negative declaration. Mitigation has been recommended for impacts related to biological resources, cultural resources, greenhouse gas emissions, and hydrology. As I referred to earlier, Coastal Commission, as a resource agency, did respond on the routing of that environmental. Staff worked with Coastal Commission collaboratively to address these, and the applicant, with the revisions to the docks, has reduced any potential impacts to a level less than significant. So staff would like to point out, before getting into the conclusion, that the proposed project, although under the PD overlay requirements where a modification of standards is permitted, is not seeking a waiver or exemption of any standards in this case. The project, as I stated, is a construction of new floating docks, provision of improved bayside lateral access, expansion of outdoor dining uses consistent with the approved visitor serving uses of this site. These amenities have been designed to provide for maximum public benefit and in a manner that's consistent with the city's general plan, local coastal plan, and waterfront master plan. In addition, the project appropriately mitigates environmental impacts to the greatest extent feasible, as discussed in the mitigated negative declaration and also in the January 5th Planning Commission staff report, which has been included as an attachment. Staff therefore recommends that the City Council adopt the mitigated negative declaration and adopt City Council Resolution 0916 for concept plan approval of conditional use permit UPO 359. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the presentation. At this point, council can take on some questions. Following that, we'll open it for public comment and then bring it back to council for discussion and deliberations. I'll look to my right for any questions. John, you want to lead us off on any questions?
Thank you, Cindy, for that presentation and that report. I appreciate that very much. One quick question. Have you quantified the positive fiscal impacts on an annual basis to the city or monthly or any time period? I noticed in your report that there's a likely positive fiscal impact for the city. I'm just trying to understand the magnitude of that. Tens of thousands per year, hundreds of thousands, millions?
It would be great if it was millions.
I know.
Staff did not quantify that amount, but of course, as a lease site, the lease site owner is required to pay a percentage of their revenues to the city. The monthly dock slips are all month-to-month rentals, so there'll be revenue from that. And then the indirect benefit of improving the building, upgrading it, making it more inviting on the second floor, should have some indirect fiscal benefit for the lease site owner and in turn for the city.
And have there been any negative issues with regard to payments in arrear with the lessee or issues of payment of excess of gross?
No.
Thank you. That's all for me. Thank you.
Noah?
Yes, thank you. Just want to ask a quick question about the navigability of the design, and curious to know if our harbor departments had a chance to take a look at that.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. So yeah, we were involved with this from the very beginning and weighing in on the different aspects of the navigability, both from our public dock on the north side and then Dutchman's Landing and their fish pier there on the south side. So yeah, we've been involved with that and everything looks good.
Great. Thank you for that. And then Cindy, just kind of curious to talk a little bit about stormwater and mitigations. And as I'm reading it, sounds like most are focused on the construction side. And I'm wondering if you've had any conversations with the applicant about some potential either as demonstration projects or ongoing best management practices with stormwater. Nothing that would go beyond anything that we've done in the past, but in some cases we've been able to talk with the applicant directly about different ideas that could be incorporated, and they actually decide to incorporate those on their own as an additional step. And just curious to know if you've had any further discussions about stormwater with them.
I have not had any additional conversations with the applicant. There are requirements, best management practices. Those are discussed in the environmental document, and they would be, required to comply with that. But nothing specific beyond the environmental review.
What would you think their response would be is if we added an additional condition that basically opened the door in a request form for them to consider more of a proactive, ongoing best management practice approach with stormwater? As I mentioned, it seems like most that are currently incorporated are looking at the construction phase alone. Just looking at, for example, the roof there that the upstairs dining area will be looking over, that to me seems like a really nice place to potentially consider a living roof application that should be aesthetically pleasing and obviously help quite a bit with runoff from that. I don't want to get too overzealous with conditions, but I would be curious to know if the applicant would be willing to entertain that sort of a concept.
I believe the applicant's in the audience, so it might be a question that's better addressed for them. I think they can address that.
Thank you.
Great. And Matt?
Yes, I have a question first. I'll start with what the status of the lease. What is the status of the lease in terms of how much longer do they have on the lease? How many years left? So I guess that's first.
I do not have the lease file with me, but a new lease was issued that got granted extended time based on this project coming to completion, and it was a 40-year lease issued back probably 2 years ago at this point. So about 38 years left, 38 years.
And so this project, Eric, would add 10 more leases, make it or would it take it? How would it add time to the lease?
It did. It was a renegotiated lease that incorporated this project in and granted more time for that.
Okay. And then with the docks there, I think you said there's 6 slips private and 1 public. So what would that bring up citywide in the harbor for how many slips we have?
Well, it's a slip that was predicated on being available to the city of Morro Bay to our department to rent out or to lease out. It's yet to see how we'll deal with that, whether we'll look at it on a transient basis or a permanent slip assignment basis.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thanks. Christine?
Hi, quick question. A few different kinds of questions. First of all, on the covered walkway that will be altered on the external bay-facing side, is that a structural walkway? Oh, excuse me, the roof, is it structural? Do you know? Or maybe the applicant could...
I don't believe it is, but the architect may have that information.
Okay, but they're planning on taking out the glass and leaving the roof and the pylon.
Right.
Okay.
And then adding some skylights on that roof.
Okay. My other questions. Can we go to the slide that shows the second floor? I just wanted to confirm what I think I understand about that. The one that has the second floor with the actual drawing. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what. No, not that one.
Next one.
The
yeah,
floor,
that
that's
one
it.
there.
Oh,
that one.
right there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so the shaded area, that indicates, so my last visit there, nothing will change inside that restaurant as it's used right now for a restaurant, right? And then can you explain what will be on the bay side where, and it's, when I enlarge my file, I can't really read it clearly, but I think it's the dining expansion. Okay, that's the part at the very bottom of the slide. Is that public or private? Well, by private, what I mean is it serviced by the restaurant or is it open for picnicking?
It's for the restaurant.
Okay, so folks can come, they can either take the elevator or they can walk to the second floor, currently as it is now, and then they can come out to then the view deck and they can simply sit and enjoy the view on that area right there. And there will be tables for sitting.
Right. Well, right now there are proposed the tables for the restaurant use, and then they will be separated from that observation deck area by a railing, so it'll be delineated. The plans themselves don't specify whether or not there would be benches or additional tables in this 10-foot area. So far, they've just proposed that it would be vacant.
Okay, so the dotted area is that 10-foot area you're speaking about.
Yeah.
So will there be any place for people to, bring their own lunch and sit on the second floor? We've talked about that before in other properties. Will that be possible here?
It will be in that 10-foot public observation area. And again, if the applicant wants to give us some more clarity on whether or not they would allow seating at those other tables, but it's staff's understanding that with the railing, it would delineate the separation that's part of the restaurant use, and then, the circled area on the screen, that's the public access area.
Right. So the way it looks right now in this plan is there would be 2 opportunities for you to dine on the second floor outside.
Right.
There would be for
the restaurant, yeah.
For the restaurant to service that, okay.
Yeah.
And then inside wouldn't change, so you could dine inside, but there would be 2 opportunities there for that.
Right.
But we're not quite clear on if there would be then other table seating available for people to, the public access part, we're not sure if there would be tables and chairs there.
They haven't proposed to put anything in that 10-foot area.
Okay.
This area here on the screen.
Okay. And then going then to the first floor as it exists now, on the south side of the building, where there are currently tables there, not prior to getting to the waterfront. Okay, those tables, is there any change on that side of the building with those tables or the access? Because you can go in and out of the candy shop and in and out of the arcade there. Will those tables remain there?
Are you talking about close to the street?
Yes, between on the south side.
Right here.
Before you get to the end of the little walkway. Mm-hmm. Currently, there are like permanent tables there. Will they stay? And they're available to the public, I believe.
Yes, they will stay.
So there's really no altering of that portion of the lease site, other than the pavers.
Right. Yeah, there'll be. Yeah. And so this area is showing you the 10-foot wide stamped concrete path. So it's kind of.
So yeah, I wanted a little more information. So right now it's all paved, but there will be a creative way to get people to the view, to the walkway. That's why we're going to change that pathway.
Right, like a visual marker, if you will, to walk this way, and then that with the signage plan, which would be required to provide signage both at the street side, at the bay side, second floor.
Okay, and then I likely missed it, but are public restroom signs also included in that updated signage? Access to public restrooms.
I don't believe they are. I don't believe that there are public restrooms that are a component of this project other than what might currently exist at the lease site.
Yeah, how are we dealing with public restrooms at the lease sites? Because I know we've talked about this too. There are restrooms there, obviously, that serve the uses in the building, but are they available to the public?
I don't think when this building was conditioned for reconstruction back 10, 12 years ago that the public restroom element was added.
Okay, but some leases do have that.
Yeah.
But this one may not.
It doesn't sound like in this project, no. Previously, does it have the public restroom requirement? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think Rose's had that back then.
So in situations where lease sites do have public bathrooms, oftentimes that's the extra public benefit that they're offering up to obtain some exception or some extra as part of the project. So, I don't believe that the restrooms here are public.
Okay, so that wouldn't be necessarily included. Then that wouldn't be included in the signage, as we've talked about on other lease sites where that it would be. This one, not necessarily. Okay, great. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. Follow up on stormwater, and I met with Scott and Cindy earlier this week, and my questions. So we're doing part of the project is doing some enhancement into that courtyard area. So the stamped concrete area, kind of not repurposing, but re-enhancing that area for more public space. And right next to that, the conversation we had was, there's trash containers, not just a trash can, but the trash dumpsters, which most often are overloaded and create kind of a problem in many ways. But the one, if it's a public space, it's not very conducive to a public space and the trash containers that there. And the other part of that component was, since they often are overloaded, there's the issue of stormwater, and we had some discussion on that, and I was wondering if you can elaborate on that discussion, whether or not that was discussed with the applicant, and if that was discussed to a point of remedy.
Yes, staff did follow up with the applicant. We also went down to the lease site. What we found out is that when the project was redeveloped in, I believe it was 2000, there was a condition placed on the project by Planning Commission that limited the size of those containers to 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide. And that's what the architect had responded to staff about too, was that the reason that they're not covered is because of the height limitations. What I found when I went down there is that it's actually just slightly by a few inches exceeds that 4-foot height limit. And I think that's the history behind why they're not covered.
Okay.
I mean,
so it's not like that we can have that discussion with the that was a previous condition. We can have that conversation with the applicant. Okay. And then the other discussion that took place on the south, the extended walkway, so there was the added 10-foot walkway that goes around the dining area. So that was creating the ability to connect the Harbor Walk component of our waterfront master plan. So it goes all the way around, yet it ends up into that, what looks to be a 3-foot ramp area, and then the dock gangway is landed up there. So we're, per our waterfront master plan, the Harbor Walk, we talked about it at the beginning of this, saying that 10-foot requirement, yet we made the exception on the other ramp bridge access to 8 feet because of the eelgrass. So we've got the 10 feet on the south side that goes up into that 3-foot ramp, and we're really not setting ourselves up to make that connection to the next lease site. And I think that was one of the conversations that took place with Planning Commission. So I'm sure I can have those conversations with the applicant, but from your recollection, there was no other discussion with Planning Commission, to make that full connector. Scott, I see a look in there. You have any comments on that?
No, we didn't have any.
Do you know what I mean, though?
I do understand that the Planning Commission did not request that they design anything there, just that they have a design that would accommodate future connection, whatever that might mean.
Yeah.
It was fairly non-specific, although they did look at both sides. Hence the reason we have the bridge on the one side, because they wanted to improve it there. And they did look to the other side, but they realized nothing in the near future is going to come along and connect anything over there, because we don't have any lease coming up on that side. So
what we do, actually, we're going to have a proposal here in another week for the lease site, to the north. So
to the north, to the north, yes,
to the north. So it does make sense in how we're looking at connections from one lease site to the next. Okay. All right, that concludes my questions. I think before we get to public comment, we'll allow the applicant to come up for a presentation. So the applicant, welcome. Come on up.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Steve Puglisi. I'm the project architect. Thanks for having us here this evening. I have with me in the audience Michael Dameyer. He is our project manager. He will have any facts that I do not. And if I goof something up, I'm sure he'll be taking care of me. I also have in the audience with me Doug Redican, who is our client. And we also have Scott Kimura from Tenera Environmental. They are our eelgrass specialists. The one individual that's not with us tonight is Paul Gillen, Associated Pacific, but we are fairly confident we can answer any questions relative to the construction of the docks themselves. As far as some of the questions you folks have asked this evening, talking about best management practice, we certainly will fulfill our obligations there. What we can do with the roof is to make sure that any of the improvements that we are making to the building on either the upper or lower level, all of that water will be properly cleaned and remediated before it gets into the bay. What we certainly cannot do at this point, we've got a lot of money we're putting into public improvements here already, trying to develop something with a green roof, and the weight and cost of that is something that we would have to decline. In terms of public access and how it moves through the project, staff's done a great job in explaining it to you folks. What we have first done is try to create a much more appealing approach from the north with this quite wide, I believe it is 8 feet, if my memory serves me, this bridge going from the viewing platform to connect to the walkway in front of Rose's. Most important thing that we are doing is agreeing to make the existing access both 100% coastal access attentive by completely eliminating any of the restaurant activities. That means no tables, no chairs. And the reason why, the width of that access, it's on the shy side. We're frankly an inch or two shy of 8 feet, and any tables we put there, be they for public or patrons of the restaurant, it impedes on that idea of the coastal access. So what we've done instead, as we move down to the south side of the property, is to create this new, I believe, 10-foot wide path on that side, bringing the public back up to the parking area and ultimately into the Embarcadero and the little park on the south side. We've got, Mr. Mayor, a bit of a problem at that particular intersection where the ramps are located, their vertical elevation. It's quite different from the patio terrace space. We have to deal with a variety of ramps in that section, so I agree with you. It is a bit awkward. Once we can get up to that patio space, then we're clear sailing at that point. I was out there just this afternoon with Doug. We have an area, if my memory serves me, that's at least 10 feet wide from the property line, which at least the land lease site, back to where the trash container structure is. We've got a very wide area that our next door neighbors to the south would be able to take direct access onto their property. There would not be any obstructions there. So we think we've got that fairly well taken care of also. As we move upstairs, one of the city council people have asked, what are we going to do in that viewing platform? And since Doug is going to have all of those tables and chairs that he's taking away from the patio walkway area below, that would be a great place to put those. That would then allow the public, as they come up, unencumbered, unfettered. They do not have to be seated at dining tables. They do not have to buy anything. But yes, they would have places to sit. They could bring their own lunch. And if they were inclined to want table service, they would simply be invited to move behind the barricade into the area that we're going to use for public dining, or for dining for the restaurant. I think that's answered the majority of questions. If I missed one, I'd be happy to take a stab at it.
Any questions? No?
Yeah, Mr. Puglisi, excuse me. I did want to pick up on the stormwater conversation that I was focusing on and will continue to focus on. What I'm not meaning to be prescriptive in any way. What I'd like to do is include some language here that opens the door and basically outlines a hope that you would continue to look, as you consider options in this project as it goes forward, to enhance stormwater treatment and best management practices. Something general, but that would keep the reminder in place. So as you're looking at different price points and applications, say even for the stamped concrete area, for example, that you would keep the stormwater in mind and try to make sure that you're doing everything you can to protect the health of the estuary.
We certainly will do that.
Okay, so I'll probably be making a recommendation on some language that would keep that in the forefront.
Very good.
Thank you.
John?
Thanks for coming up. And a question I had on the second story deck area where you will have tables. How many feet will there be from, let's say, the edge where the public might be able to stand and where the first table might be placed?
I believe that's 10 feet. Let's see if Mike's paying attention.
Is it 10? Yeah, okay. Is that a 10?
I got that right.
Yeah, okay. Would there be any possibility of putting a couple of benches for people to just sit? I know there are tables back there, but in that 10-foot area,
absolutely,
would there be the possibility of putting a couple of benches for folks to sit?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Christine?
Just a really quick question about the structural nature of that. On the first floor, keeping that roof, you're going to keep it covered, the walkway, and then put skylights in. Is that right?
That is correct. What the Planning Commission was looking for was to make a more open and inviting look to it. And in concept, we think the idea is great. As far as a practical consequence, Doug, who has managed that restaurant for many years, knows that having that bit of cover does a couple of things. One, when the weather's a bit inclement, that becomes a great place for people to gather just because it's out of the weather. Number two, it does help with any of the bird problems that are associated without having any overhang. We think the photographs speak very well. what that area is now going to look like once we get rid of all of the glass, get a cable rail or an open guardrail design, it's going to be much more inviting to the public, and we think that's what Coastal's really pushing us for.
Okay,
now,
great.
we're going to find all of these things out, by the way, because as we move past you folks, as Cindy's pointed out, then Coastal's going to take some swings at us on this. So by the time we come back to Planning Commission, we'll have a very palatable sense of what they expect us to do.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, Christine. Mr. Puglisi, I just wanted to speak to the trash receptacle area, and as I learned, so there was kind of some conditions placed on that for height. Very obvious for me when I travel through that area, as I described. Maybe it shields the trash containers, but it's not very conducive for the normal service that it's supposed to provide. Oftentimes it gets overloaded, and it's just a seagull haven, and so it creates trash problems. And I can't imagine it would be really that pleasant if you were to want to sit in that area. So I just wanted to open up the discussion on how we could cover that. And I don't think I need to get into the details, whether it's a foot high or 2 feet high, other than maybe working with staff on some remedy to that, and just, leave it to that. If there's something that, I would imagine Mr. Redican, having the facility there, wants to have his customers, experience a nice place. So, I just wanted to speak to that and just hear what you might be able to respond to.
Let's try this, and I appreciate the latitude you're giving me on this, Mr. Mayor. When Doug and I first designed this, it was certainly not our intention to have it that low, and this was a condition. This was one of the big hot buttons years ago with Coastal staff. If Doug allows, I would have no objection as we move this project to Coastal staff to show a couple of other ideas to them. They could include some screening that we could install for, let's say, an additional foot on top of the concrete work that is there. That's going to help us visually. Is it possible to have some type of lid that can be raised and lowered to facilitate using the containers and also removing the containers when they're to be emptied? The big thing about stormwater is, Doug just reminded me, each one of those bins is properly drained to a remediation area before that water gets itself back out into the bay. So we've got that part handled. As far as being overloaded, that is, in my mind, simply an issue of management of the two groups that work with those enclosures. That should be something that the trash company could more frequently make pickups. There's no excuse in my mind other than that.
Okay.
We will, with your permission, I'll speak with Doug about it, work with staff when this project, hopefully if you approve it this evening, when we move it up to Coastal, I will not ignore your request, and we will try to open these doors with staff, and you'll have a chance to see it, hopefully, when we bring it back to planning.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Unless there are any other questions, we'll open up for public comment for the public, and then should there be any other comments, maybe we'll ask you to come up.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Puglisi. At this time, public comment is open. For anybody who'd like to speak to this project, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. And Mr. Smuckler, do you want to start us off? It sounds like you have some discussion and language.
Yeah, I think this is a good project. I believe the Planning Commission's conditions really helped improve it, and this is going to be a nice addition. So I'm very supportive, but I do always want to make sure we're thinking about the water quality of the estuary in all of our dealings with projects down on the Embarcadero and throughout town. So I've got some suggested language that I think would be soft enough to give the applicant plenty of latitude, and in some cases I think they really just need to identify and highlight some of the things that are already included in the program, and that could help. But it's important for us all to keep that awareness up, because we know the importance of the estuary in our daily lives and our economy. So what I'd like to suggest, and I'm definitely interested in staff's comments on maybe how to improve this, but I believe this would fit best under the public works conditions, which the language would be to the greatest extent feasible, the project and plans will consider, include, and identify stormwater best management practices and/or public education components to help protect water quality of the estuary beyond the construction phase. And that's very soft, but I think it helps keep it on the radar as something we'd like to achieve as much as possible.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if staff has any comments about that, whether the placement of that or the actual language.
I see a Cindy taking diligent notes. Well, I guess we'll come back to that if we want to go through the rest of the comments.
I have no objection. I mean, I think we get the gist of what Councilmember Smuggler's requesting. So I don't think there's a question there, and we would pursue that with them when they come back in with construction documents.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, Mr. Heading.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. I would agree with Mr. Smuckler's comments and support that language as well. And as I stated previously, and it appears the applicant agrees, it would be great to have some seating benches on the upper deck. Often I think folks do like to come maybe and use the tables, but at times when you're standing up there for a period of time and it's beautiful, some of us with old knees need to sit for a while. So adding some benches and working with staff to include that would be a recommendation that I'd like to see included as well.
Okay, great. Matt?
No, I like the presentation of the process, and I look forward to it coming back to us. No, I agree with you about the estuary and stormwater mitigation, but I think the applicant, I like the way you sound open to these suggestions and look forward to talking to you when it comes back from Coastal.
Christine?
I think that's a great property in general. I think what's exciting about it is right now there's an arcade there, and it's really a mecca for young people. I mean, there aren't like a million things to do in a town of 10,000 people, but I do think the access that you're allowing kids to come in and have a good time, kind of like good, clean fun, improving that access for families and people hanging out there while people enjoy that part. It's probably don't even know there's an arcade there, some of you, but it's super fun, and there's air hockey. So, but these are unique things, and they're unique to Morro Bay, and it's unique for the visitor and for the resident. So I think enhancing everyone's flow through there, it's just a really fun place to be. I think that we're like Coastal Commission Light, where we sit through a lot of their meetings too and understand what their issues will be. So by asking all these questions about access, public access, and who can sit and where do people stand, whether or not they're interested in purchasing something from the business is something that I clearly you understand, and you will continue to keep that in mind moving forward, simply because Coastal will ask you similar questions. So I think it's aesthetically great improvements. I think access for all public folks and those people who are frequenting your establishment, I think will be improve the view and improve the flow and the feel of both the first and second floor businesses. So I really appreciate the opening up of the public space. I think it will improve the use for all users, actually, and I really appreciate you thinking about how people will walk through there. I think it will be much improved. And the slips as well. Again, it's good to have more slip space, and I think if the city can accommodate an extra one, that's a benefit. So look forward to sending this off tonight and having it come back. Thanks.
Great.
Oh, and I should say I support Councilmember Smuggler's additions.
Great. And I'll echo the support for the added language, and based on the feedback from the applicant agent, as far as including, some language in there in an effort to find some solution, creative solution to the trash containers, some closure. And I'll leave it to include, staff to include some language in there for that. And, that through the conversation, I take it that'll be staff coordination, and as it works through Coastal with the applicant, we'll go from there. I just did want to make some closing comments, though, and thank Mr. Redican. Lease site management and owning a lease and maintaining it and and working through these processes, it's a big investment. So, I appreciate your diligent work and your team, Mr. Puglisi, for working through all this, because, I know you're just at one end of it. You still got the coastal to go through. So I appreciate your investment. The dining deck, I think, was great to work through. The viewing area, to include all that. The access enhancement, that's a big plus. I think those are things that I think are in some way, people have looked at that for a long time as a kind of a choke point. So actually you see that lateral access open up the way it is. That'll be great. There's some subtle things in there as far as some light hatches that were added to that access way to ensure that the eel grass is protected as well. So that that wasn't overlooked. So thank you. Just overall, I think it worked well through the process here at the city. I just want to appreciate the work and staff's work with this as well. So I'm ready to move forward with a motion. Noah, if you have a motion crafted, that'd be great.
Okay. How formal do you think we should get with? We've heard a couple of items: the trash enclosure, the bench, and then the stormwater item. Staff, what do you prefer as far as us formalizing any of that?
If you want, you can give us a second and we can craft specific language. If you're comfortable giving the direction of that, we're happy to craft. I mean, I don't think there was anything that was too specific. I think we understand what you want us to do. I don't think there's any question. I talked to Cindy just now about it. She's very clear, as am I. So
okay,
I think
that's nice. Let's go with that option then. So I'll go ahead and move that we adopt the mitigated negative deck and adopt Resolution 09-16. Making the necessary findings for approval of the conditional use permit UPO-359 for the construction of the items as listed, and including additional language regarding bench on the second floor, trash can enclosures, and additional stormwater best management practices.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smuckler, second by Mr. Heading. And just for discussion's sake, we're approving a resolution. That resolution, when comes, usually I'll sign the resolutions, we'll have the language in there, so I'll be looking at that language as well. So, if that makes everybody feel better, hopefully it'll be all there. So
it does.
All on you.
At any rate, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thanks very much. That'll conclude item B1, and we'll move right on to our next course of business. Item C1 is recreation program update. And let me get through to the right spot on our agenda. This recreation program update by our Deputy City Manager, Sam Taylor, will be presenting the update. Okay. All right, good. Thank you. The reason we didn't was because we wanted to do the rec thing first. I understand. We thought about that. Yeah. 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 No, they're just one each, so you've got more than one. Here. Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right, yeah, that's right.
Thank you, council members. Sorry for the delay there. And yeah, Councilmember Johnson wanted to make sure she could see me too, so thank you. Well, thank you for being here tonight. I'm really glad that we were able to put the rec programs update prior to any of the other fun stuff we're doing tonight to force this lovely large audience to listen to the cool stuff we're doing in rec.
So we didn't want to punish you all, but we did want to share some good information. So
Absolutely.
Bear with us. Thank you. Yeah.
So we'll keep this really brief because this is a busy meeting, kind of keep it high level. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit about kind of four main things we've been working on at REC over the last, I guess it's been like 8 months. That's pretty crazy. But obviously, as of June of 2015, we made some reorganizational changes regarding the Recreation Services Division, including the Deputy City Manager now managing that function. And so I've been working with the amazing staff over there to continue to really provide quality service on behalf of our community. I think we all agree that recreation services is really crucial to the quality of life in Morro Bay. So we've been working on some marketing enhancements, program cost reductions, additional partnerships, and staffing for enhanced customer service. The things we've been doing in marketing, really the city overall, and this is probably to the credit of the city manager when he came in, really ramped up kind of the social. We've really increased the amount of, especially Facebook, that we use. In June of 2015, we had about 500 likes on the page. Thanks to El Nino, we're now over 3,600. Tornadoes and stuff, throwing boats, and the beach getting washed away has made us go viral. So we continue to climb in likes. That allows us, though, to amplify the sharing stories and programs in rec, and that's very helpful, in the community. We also have active.com. It's our system that we use for folks to sign up for programs, to rent facilities, and it turns out we actually have a rather robust email system through that. So when folks sign up for a class or want to get information, they're contacted, and we can use that for an emailed newsletter. We're going to continue to increase our use of that system while also being mindful that we're not spamming folks with it, because maybe they don't want to hear about everything. So we're going to try to be really cautious about using it, but I think it is an effective use of that. We also are taking advantage of the citywide utility bill newsletter for better reach. We try to put out a monthly newsletter that talks about various city programming. And then just this year, this was kind of an innovative one for us, to be honest. The sports staff, one staffer traveled up to Walnut Creek for a large race, and we basically went there to promote the Rock to Pier Run, which is something we actually make money on. Not a whole lot, but we made over $9,000 versus what we cost for that race. So it was valuable to do that. We also were able to bring visitors guides with us up there, and kind of got to stunt for tourism as well. Coming soon, thanks to the City Council approving the updated objectives for this next fiscal year, we also will be working on a mailed recreation guide to the community. We used to have one, and we're hoping to bring that back. I think that's a really valuable resource for our community and our demographics. In terms of program cost reductions, just a few quick highlights and some changes versus what I've said in the past about some reductions. Really, really proud of this, and I really thank rec staff, and I really appreciate council members who also both supported this program and really, really basically helped to advertise it on our behalf, so thank you. But we had every single basketball team this year was sponsored by a local business or foundation. Also, the department heads at the city pitched in, and all of the T-shirts were sponsored. So that saved each child in the program 10%. And we're working really hard to try to be mindful of those costs. We do know that more than half the children in the school district, at the elementary school level at least, are low income or receive free and reduced lunch. And so we really want to work on trying to keep those costs reasonable and as low as possible. One thing I had hoped to do was take the basketballs and actually purchase them in bulk, and rather than making each child purchase a ball as part of their thing, we would provide it to them during the year and then take it back. We actually got feedback from the community that they wanted the ball. And so we're going to keep reassessing that. There is value to them taking the ball home. They can practice and do skills at home as well. But again, it's kind of a cost thing, and just trying to be really mindful about any opportunity we have to save money. Youth soccer, we did actually buy the balls in bulk there. The feedback, I guess, wasn't the same, and that did reduce the cost for those folks. We also purchased this year some mobile lines for soccer. Rather than having to bring temporary spray paint out and mark the fields every time, we now have these mobile lines we can just set out. It's super quick, and it's saving us a bunch of money to do that, hundreds of bucks each time. Each of those costs of those programs obviously goes back into what it costs the user. So anytime we can do those little things, it'll be helpful. This is just a quick slide to thank all the folks that were sponsors of our local teams. Also wanted to note that the Morro Bay Community Foundation actually did sponsor 4 teams as well, and that actually allowed us to get each team sponsored. In terms of partnerships, we want to recognize that the Morro Bay Community Foundation, we do have a kind of non-contractual, but it's a long-standing partnership with the Morro Bay Community Foundation. that provides support for local low-income youth. We will be talking a little bit later about sponsorship and partnership, and this is potentially an opportunity for an official partnership agreement with those folks, depending on how we kind of define the direction of those partnerships. We've had recent discussions with SLO YMCA on potential future partnerships, still very high level in terms of what that means. They've suggested some opportunities to help supplement kind of our staffing level and maybe provide additional senior classes to start, just kind of really dipping our toe in the water of what that type of partnership could be. We recognize, and they've fully admitted that their resource levels are, low as well, or challenging, and so we'll keep, that's kind of probably a long-term opportunity. And then business partnerships, wanted to recognize that we're potentially going to work with Morro Bay stand-up paddleboarding for junior lifeguards. They're going to maybe provide free of charge some paddle boards and get the kids some training and experience on that as well. And anytime a local recreational business would like to partner with us and enhance our programs, we would love to do that. Any opportunity we have to encourage the business community to participate with us, we'd be happy to do so. Finally, staffing for customer service. There's been some substantial changes, really kind of hours changes, but unfortunately earlier in 2015 we lost a really great administrative assistant who was full-time. But it did give us an opportunity to really look at the staffing we had, how we were running stuff. And the goal I think we've had over there is we really want to make sure that our customer service is constant. And prior to more recently, as of the fall, when we made some changes, we didn't have someone at the front counter all the time. We didn't have someone able to answer the phone all the time. And that was an impact, in my opinion, on customer service. We also didn't have, we don't still technically, but we had very reduced hours in terms of permitting for facility reservations and park rental and film permitting, and that's a very big deal. This last year, we have seen a substantial increase in our facility use. Substantial. At mid-year budget, for instance, last year, we had brought in about $10,000 in facility reservation fees, not park rentals, just facility reservation. And we're at this mid-year, we're almost $18,000, so almost double the amount of facility use year over year. It's pretty astounding. So to that end, kind of the things that we've done is we hired a part-time administrative assistant instead of a full-time. That person works both off the front desk and on the front desk, along with the part-time receptionist. We've increased the hours of a part-time employee who's working at the teen center, who now also does facility reservations. By doing that, we're actually able to add an additional day to our reservation system. So when folks come in and bring in applications, there's now 4 days of someone who does it all the time instead of 3. This system, I think, also is allowing us to kind of try to focus more on the marketing. The part-time assistant we hired happens to be a Pulitzer Prize winner and is very familiar with marketing efforts and communications. And so I feel really grateful and lucky that we were able to get her on board. We stole her from the county library system. I'm not sorry about it. And we're really looking forward to continuing to use her professional skill set to enhance our marketing. So we're thankful that Tiffany's there. Overall, because of all of these changes, we have had a substantial reduction in employee costs. We were, just for perspective, we were budgeted, I think, at regular pay this year, about $50,000. We're at about $12,000 so far. We've had an increase in part-time pay, but it's about 75% of what it probably should have been at this time. So we actually, by doing this, we're using less people, admittedly, but we have been able to increase the hours of those folks and enhance the way we do customer service. So I think we're all pretty happy about it, and we're going to keep looking at ways to enhance that customer service. That's the presentation.
Great, Sam. Thank you. And with that, we'll look for questions from council and then open it up for public comment and back to council for discussion. Christine?
Yes, questions. Great report. Good to hear what's happening. Question is, any sense at this point, or maybe you'll come back to us at a later point, with why we're seeing such an increase in facility use? Is it because we raised fees, or is it because people are coming more on the weekdays, the evenings? And then when are they coming? Weekdays, evenings, weekends? Or Or can you not quite sure yet?
We're not quite sure yet, and we actually tried to pull some reporting today. We're going to need to work on that a little bit more. That system's pretty interesting. I'll be honest. The feedback we get from some of our very long-time user groups is that the fees have been a hindrance, but we're not experiencing. That's an anecdotal. We're not experiencing that overall. We are seeing an uptick in usage, and we've been try to be very mindful of the fees when we increase them. They are competitive to the rest of the county. And so we feel pretty good about that.
Okay, that was my question. I have mostly comments after that. Thanks.
Great. Matt?
Yes, Sam, I have a question in terms of the coordination of services for the various demographics, kids, adults, seniors, if those are the three. Besides Active and Facebook, do you envision some sort of other outreaching?
Yeah, so that, we're obviously using the email system for any folk who's ever done a class, participated in any sport. We now have the ability to do an email newsletter to them. We're using the utility billing newsletter to reach the rest of the community as well. And then I think the really large one is going to be the recreation guide that's going to come out. It's going to hit every doorstep, and those typically have a very large read rate, and so I think we're really excited about that.
Are you going to send that via mail by itself or in the utility bill?
That'll be by itself.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Great.
If I can just add to that recreation program guide, we're planning for that to come out 3 times a year. And it will roll up Morro Bay Recreation Department programs and all the other recreational opportunities in Morro Bay. Pickleball, Morro Bay stand-up paddleboard. So we will encourage recreational businesses to include their opportunities in there, recreation opportunities that are other entities, whether Little League and those sort of things that aren't Morro Bay Recreation Department, NGOs, volunteer groups, so it should be a roll-up of all the recreational things you can do in Morro Bay, mountain biking maps, road biking maps, all of those things all in one place, coming out 3 times a year, projecting to the next quarter of what is going to be available.
Thanks. John?
Yes, I have many comments, but just one question. Mr. Taylor, of your 80-hour week, about how many hours do you put in recreation, just out of curiosity?
I probably couldn't quantify it, to be honest. I do manage 4 different kind of divisions for the community: economic development, IT, communications, and rec. I try to have explicit office hours there every council week. 2 days a week, no matter what, and then we do quite a bit of email communication. Honestly, that would probably happen anyway because I'm in quite a few meetings. So
you're not sure?
I honestly have no idea.
Okay.
No? Okay. I haven't really looked, but as one who travels with a dog, one thing that I found was when you Google things, dog parks are very attractive for travelers. It draws them to the city. So, it just struck me during this. I haven't Googled our own city to see if our dog park is listed, but I know when I travel and we're traveling with our dog, that's one thing we do, and we'll stop and use that, and that's part of the city. So it encourages us to do that. So just an anecdotal comment. But other than that, since there's no more questions, I'll open it for public comment for anybody who'd like to speak to this item. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back to council, and then we'll start off with comments. Councilmember Johnson.
Okay, great. I really do appreciate, I'd like to say for all of council and then especially to the staff in the rec department, I appreciate the renewed energy that you're all bringing as a team to the recreational programs. I think that it's obvious that there's more happening. The marketing is fantastic. I can tell you that I have a young child who plays and participates in many things, and the last 2 seasons, not this fall, okay, but 2 years prior, every single time there was a sign up, I would get a complaint, at least 1, 2, 3 complaints that no one knew what was going on, they missed the signups, and they won't take my child. So that's pretty disappointing because we're a small town, you really want to fit kids in, but sometimes you miss deadlines, there's nothing the city can really do. So somehow we just weren't getting the word out. So this year I went through soccer in the fall and basketball in the winter, and I did not receive a single complaint, not one. So all I can tell you is, yes, it's anecdotal, but certainly it was a consistent kind of a negative feeling people had about our rec program because they just couldn't get their kids in. So I have not received complaints like that in a very long time, so I can only assume that other people are seeing the marketing as well as I am. Also, I think that a phone response is always very appreciated in this area. People call the city probably for things like their billing and when they want to get involved in something. So when they don't get a call back for a day or two, it's frustrating, for them too. So I think if you're focusing on the phone call response in particular, especially if, folks leave voicemails, and that if you're improving the turnaround time, that would be extremely appreciated by the public based on feedback that I receive. I think to review and assess our programs in REC this is an exceptional opportunity whenever you have change and turnover. It's a good idea to take a look at how things have been operating and look for ways to improve. So I'm very excited. I want to compliment our Rec and Parks Commission. I'm the liaison to that group, and we've added 2 or 3 new voices in the last year and a half, perhaps, I believe. 3 new voices. And the commission's great. They worked really hard on everything you're going to see tonight on the agenda. There are a couple of different items for REC, and they're working really hard, and they're very committed, and they take it very seriously. So I just want to commend their work as well. And I think I'm so excited to see the overall recreational programs, everything we do in the city in one place. We have an exceptional opportunities here for recreation, and there are things that people don't even really know about. And most things are not even that expensive. So I think that's a wonderful thing that we can, if we're bringing that back, if we've done that in the past, we hadn't been doing it in several years, I think that we're all going to feel really excited about what kind of a great community we live in and how many things we can do with all of our free time. Okay, thanks. That's it. So great report.
Thank you. Matt?
Scott, Sam, I really like the way that you're coming in and working with the existing recreation department and enhancing what is being offered. For years, I've worked with the recreation department, and so many people thrive on this department across the demographics in town, and they so appreciate it. And by enhancing it and opening it up, you're doing nothing but helping it. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And that goes along with the staff. We already have a staff that just diligently works to provide, I think, an exceptional product to our city, and that goes for all of them and to all of the various groups that they offer it to. And I know because I've over the years gotten so many comments and calls of people that really appreciate, and so this is just helping the program. So thank you,
John.
I'm thinking back 10 months ago when there was major transition, consternation in the community, fear. And there was a tragedy within the recreation department. It seemed like Mr. Buckingham stepped in, got things organized, and then with the hiring of Mr. Taylor, gave him the responsibility for the department. And your report tonight is extremely encouraging. I'm amazed because I kind of know your schedule and the number of things that you do. I've been spying on your email, I promise. But you and the Recreation Committee are to be commended significantly for what you have done in so little time. So I want to echo what the others have said, offer my appreciation for the partnerships with businesses. My grandson and my granddaughter are involved in programs. They love it. It's helpful to them, and I can't tell you how happy we are with my family is with what's going on. A couple of opportunities. One, you've got a pool coming soon for seniors. I don't think it's too early to begin to plan programs and opportunities for improving health. Isometric exercise is extremely helpful for seniors, and I think to begin to think about how that partnership might work right now, if you haven't already, is a good idea. And then continuing to look at other innovative ways to offset the fees. Unfortunately, it's expensive to provide the level of service that we do for kids. And I appreciate the foundation's support, and I appreciate, again, how you've sought partnerships from businesses. But I encourage you to continue to try to look for other ways to help young people be able to afford the programs. It's just so important for them to be involved in teen concepts and to be involved in recreation. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your thank your committee for their energy and excitement, and I just want to say I appreciate you.
Noah?
Yes, I just want to thank the council members for summing up my thoughts exactly so well. So those are my comments, and keep up the great work.
Thank you
Thanks.
all. And Mayor, really quick, if I could, just one thing on the pool, because that's a hot topic in the community, and I literally today we were talking about the pool. So we are planning on it. What we're doing is we're working on the fiscal year budget. So we very much recognize we need to kind of get with the districts now again and really try to get some more detail out of them, which will allow us to better fashion that. But we're excited. We've got staff prepped and going to training for pool management and all that. So we're ready to go.
Great.
All right, Noah, thanks for your comments, and I'll just sum up and echo everyone else. I think everybody pretty much summed it up. And great energy watching the Rec and Park meetings and seeing the energy with the board and with your work, Sam. Thanks. And I think all the other comments have been taken, so I'll conclude with that. This receive and file, great update. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, C2, maybe a request for a break. Just real briefly, so we have pickleballers next on the agenda. How many other folks are out there for other items on the agenda? We have other items on the agenda? Okay. Because we have a Community Development Department update, and then we have a couple signature event, and then co-sponsorship policy. I just want to kind of get a show of hands on things. So you want to take just a 2-minute break? So we'll take a 2-minute break, and then we'll be right back, and we'll go right into pickleball.